It takes two to make a thing go right. It takes two to make it out of sight. Well, according to Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock. Thanks for tuning in and welcome to NPO Square, the podcast that shares the origin, mission, and journey of nonprofit organizations in New York City. Our guests discuss the humble beginnings of their organizations, the challenges and triumphs they face, and how they've managed to expand. There's also inside scoop on alternate career paths, volunteer opportunities, and inspiration on starting your own nonprofit. Let's level up together. Thank you all for tuning in. My name is Adia Johnson. I am the host today for NPO Squared. Today we have Melissa Norden, who is with Bottomless Closet. Thank you, Melissa, for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so I'm just going to jump straight into the questions. All right, so Bottomless Closet is a nonprofit organization which has been around for about 24 years now. Can you please share its origin story and some of its services?
Sure. Thank you so much again for inviting me to participate today. We've been around, as you said, almost 25 years now. Actually, January is our 25th anniversary. And we were started up in 1999 by a group of women in response to the Welfare Reform Act during the Clinton administration. And basically what the act stated is that if you were receiving public assistance, you're going to have to go to work. And for many women, this was the first time they were going to be working. And they didn't have the means to get ready for a job interview. And so people think just because you have a job interview, you applied, you got the interview, you're ready to go. And that wasn't the case, and these women knew that. And they started out by offering them clothing for their job interviews because they knew that would be the most immediate need. And the organization has evolved over time to offer a whole wide range of support services to prepare for job interviews, but also to help you in your career journey and to stay in that job and become self-sufficient.
I know, I looked on the website, I did see some interviewing prep. So what other services are available for these women?
So overall, our mission is to inspire and guide disadvantaged women to enter the workforce and achieve success, right? So we start by outfitting them in our boutique. Our office is half boutique. It's fully stocked with donations of clothing from individuals, corporate clothing drives, corporate partnerships. And we work to outfit women in 1 to 2 outfits for an interview and a callback, or even if you spilled coffee on your top that morning and that's the only top you have, we want to make sure you have a backup. So we'll give you all the clothing, shoes, purse, jewelry you need to be ready. Then we'll work on your resume. And many of our clients, they've never had a resume before. They may just have some notes on a paper, and we help them put together a resume. And then we'll go through mock interview skills. And a lot of what we do is sequenced for a reason. So we start in the dressing area because there'll be nice conversations that develop sort of naturally versus just forced one-on-one looking at a resume with a stranger, right? Which can be very intimidating. So you chat in the boutique area and you learn things about the person. And we have clients from a lot of very challenging backgrounds who may not want to share things, but they may share them in those kinds of conversations. So a lot of clients are referred to us from being in homeless shelters, domestic violence victims groups, groups that work with the formerly incarcerated, all different kinds of LGBTQ groups. So, our clients have been through a variety of different circumstances, but the more they share with us, the more we can help them. I think, things like augmenting your resume, women also are very good at downplaying their skills versus playing them up, unfortunately. So we may learn things and connect some dots. So give an example of a woman we learn who has a deaf child, right? And she's been home with that child during her time not working. And we'll say to her, how do you communicate with your child? And she'll say, well, we communicate by sign language. And we'll look at her resume and say, well, why don't you write down that you're bilingual? Because you communicate in sign language, right? And so sometimes connecting those sorts of dots. And then, we're also doing a lot of coaching. And we may learn someone's a domestic violence victim, was abused by someone of the opposite sex. And they have a lot of fears about potentially going into a closed door experience and an interview with someone of the opposite sex. And we want to go through what that scenario looks like in a safe environment. So we really tailor the experience to the person. So we coach them through that. If you've been formerly incarcerated, do you know your rights on a job interview? We don't do cookie cutter. It's really, what we learn about the person is the more we can help them. So we'll do the clothing, the resume, the interview skills, and we do all those things to get them ready for their job interview. We can change if someone has an arrest record. We can change if someone doesn't have the education for the job, but we can change how they present themselves, how they show confidence. We see a lot of people come in with a lack of confidence because of the experiences they've been through, and they've not been bolstered or made to feel like they are someone. And the whole experience of coming to our office is the opposite. Our boutique is very, very inclusive. We go from like size 00 to size 32 in clothing. I think we're more exclusive than any store in America. We also have just, clothing for different people. So if you want to dress more gender fluid, if you need maternity wear, we try to hit all the different levers of people in different circumstances, because a lot of our clients have been in quote unquote the system, been treated like a number, and we want them to be feeling like someone when they leave, because if they don't, they're not going to present that way, and so that they can get the job. And some of my most favorite stories are about our clients who went in for the very junior role and came out with a manager role because of the confidence that they displayed. And we also support clients after they get the job. So after you get the job, you can come back, get additional clothing to start your work wardrobe, because just because you got the job doesn't mean you have money to pay for your clothing for the job. One thing I know I was surprised to learn when I got there is that even if you're in a uniform, you may have to pay for a piece of that uniform when you go to the job. So we give you 2 to 3 more outfits to start your work wardrobe, in addition to the 2 you got at the beginning, so we can mix and match for a couple of weeks until you get paid if needed. Oh, and we also have another coaching appointment where we go through like early success in the job. If your bus isn't working tomorrow, how are you getting to work? If your childcare doesn't show up, what are you doing about that? Kind of going through all those scenarios with you, because we find that our clients lack the job, but they also lack the network of support to get and keep the job as well, which is almost more critical. And so we have that coaching appointment to kind of get them set up on a solid footing as they go into the workforce. But if you get the job or you don't get the job, you're entitled to participate in our workshop series after your first visit. So our workshops cover a wide range of areas, which are financial management, professional development, personal enrichment, and digital literacy. And we go from intro to banking to how to buy your first home and everything in between. We find that a lot of our clients come in with a lot of debt. They've never been to a bank. They've used check cashing places, which makes me crazy because they're giving away a percentage of their paycheck. On professional development, it's things like how to do your LinkedIn profile, how to ask for a promotion or a raise, how to deal with conflict on the job, things like that. Personal enrichment are things like yoga for stress relief, how to have a work wardrobe on a budget, and all things that kind of become stressors on the job, and we want to keep those at bay. And digital literacy is actually something we introduced in the pandemic. Obviously, digital literacy has become so much more critical, and that program is meant to help you, learn certain literal, digital programs, but also just how to do your banking on your phone, how to manage your kids' schedules on your phone, things like that. Because a lot of our clients were not connected until the pandemic, so it's very new to them. And again, all of these services are really meant to help you get on the path to self-sufficiency to support you and your family, because we know that half of our clients are moms, and of that half, about 3/4 are single moms. So we really are helping support families and really trying to break the cycle of intergenerational poverty.
That's awesome. You have a full service program going on. And I know over the 24 years, you probably implemented all these things because you've encountered, women who've had challenges. So you're like, how can we service them? How can we add on? So I know that's probably what happened over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was never more critical than in the pandemic. In March of 2020, so the very, very beginning, we pulled our clients, people who had been through our doors before, whenever that was, and 70% had already lost their jobs. And that's just who answered the survey. I always think that number must have been higher, which is kind of remarkable. But as the industries our clients were in the hardest hit. And then even the people who sort of were staying in jobs were the people we clapped for at 7 o'clock every night, the essential workers. We don't use that term anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that would happen, and it really upsets me, but those are my clients. And we were constantly surveying our clients throughout the pandemic to see what their needs were. And, we definitely pivoted a lot of our workshops to their really critical time-sensitive needs. Like a lot were applying for, housing benefits, threatened with losing their housing during the pandemic, or they had food insecurity issues they were dealing with the first time, We had like a lawyer talk about like what to do if you're trying to be evicted, all different kinds of things that weren't necessarily on point for our mission. But again, it's all about keeping the job, staying in the job. If you're worried about losing your home, your head's not in the game with your job, right? So we really have been very good at asking our clients, what do you need, and getting it for them.
I wanted to segue a bit into what you do because I know that you're the executive director at Bottomless Closet. So please tell us what your role entails and how you got into your current line of work.
Sure. So I am actually a lawyer by training. I've been in the nonprofit world for my entire career, which is unusual. Usually people pivot to nonprofits at some point in their career. And I was someone who had a very senior position for many, many years, and someone who thought they'd never lose their job. And despite the fact that I was a lawyer and an executive and had a huge network, I lost my job and was out of work for over 2 years. And I knew that but for my education, my training, my network, my family, my friends, I could have been a Bottomless Closet client. And so at the time when I was looking for a job, like nothing could have resonated with me more than this organization. And it's why, I never experienced homelessness. A lot of things that our clients have been through, I've never experienced, but I've experienced other things that they may not have experienced, right? And certainly, it was a blow to my confidence, which is at the core of what we do, and how to rebuild that, and how I rebuilt that for myself is part of the story that I could share with our clients. And I've always been very involved in community service and always been about giving back. And when our clients say to me, like, you've helped me so much, I'm now in this great place, like, how can I repay you? And I always say, I just want you to pay it forward in some way. And that could be, the outfit we gave you for your job interview that you no longer need, like gifting it to somebody else, or, telling someone in your community about Bottomless Closet, or making a financial donation if you're able. We have clients who make financial donations now, or, letting someone know about a workshop that you were in and how that helped you, or sharing a job listing, like whatever it is. Paying it forward in some way has always been a part of what I've done, and how I've spent my career, and what I try to do in my personal life. And so that's why Bottomless Closet resonated with me. And I've been here 7.5 years now.
That sounds beautiful. So since you're a big advocate for Bottomless Closet, it's close to your heart. How does Bottomless Closet ensure that staff, volunteers, and even clients, like previous clients, still feel appreciated?
Yeah, it's not easy. We're a very small team. We're actually only 8 on our staff, including me. But we are really reliant on our volunteers. We have over 100 regular volunteers, many of whom have been with us for a really long time. And we've built this community. We've built this community of women helping women. And we all feel motivated to stay involved, to be accountable to one another. And, we do things like we have a volunteer appreciation party every year, and we have it hosted in the home of one of our board members, a really beautiful home. But it's really just, the work that motivates all of us to be there. Oftentimes nonprofits are, paying a lot less than being in a for-profit world. So it has to be that you're really motivated by the work, and the people that you're around. And since I started, we've been able to keep a lot of the same core staff together. One of the things that I love is how much they support each other. I think that's, tends to be very rare in a company where one team is always looking out for the other team and making sure the other ones are included. Like that's how you have a successful environment, I think.
Given that you mentioned comparison, so comparing nonprofit world to corporate world or any other business, what's a misconception that you think nonprofits get that you would love to clarify or you would love to address?
Yeah, so one thing that is always funny to me is when there's an economic downturn or something like that, a lot of people pivot from corporate America to saying like, oh, I'm going to take an easier job at a nonprofit. And working at a nonprofit is often way more complex than working at a for-profit company. And I've worked at very big for-profits. I've worked at very big nonprofits. I've worked at small nonprofits. I've worked at small for-profits. And I can tell you nothing is more complex than working at a nonprofit because you're working with much more limited resources, and much higher expectations usually. People also think you get a lot of government funding that supports you, which is another, I'm always tied between like, the for-profit, nonprofit and the government thing. So I'm going to merge them both together because it's really hard to get government funding. And even if you do, the amount of paperwork you get is so onerous. It almost makes you not want to take it. And so there are a lot of challenges because you don't have the resources of a for-profit.
I agree. Anyone who's working nonprofit really has so many like multiple hats to wear. So they really come out having so many skill sets. So to say like it's an easier job is definitely not. Like I'm learning everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know that one of the reasons I was chosen for this job was because I was a lawyer, right? But I also helped build a very large nonprofit, which was like a for-profit, quite frankly. I said I've done everything other than work at a small nonprofit because I didn't intend to do that as a lawyer, but I was asked to take on this executive role that was kind of like not in my direct path. And I ended up seeing like all kinds of things: law enforcement, operations, IT, HR, grants, like everything. And I thought I did it all until I came to a small nonprofit where I really do have to do it all. It's a lot, and it's frustrating not able to get to everything as well. But at the end of the day, you're doing good work.
What's been the biggest challenge in your profession, especially at Bottomless Closet?
Even again, coming from a large nonprofit to a small one, is that you don't have the resources. In the pandemic, a lot fell to me personally because there's a lot of new stuff to learn at a time like that, and you have to do that and all the other things that you do that are kind of an extension of your job. So, like for instance, it's a silly thing, but I do all of our social media. We don't have anybody else. And oftentimes I get compliments from people about how good our social media is. And I laugh and they say, "Why are you laughing?" I said, "Because I do." They said, "You do the social media?" I'm like, "There's no one else." And I realized how valuable it is to have that and how many great opportunities we've had from having a really strong social media presence for a small nonprofit. And so I make it my priority. But then, when you have to learn about PPP loans and, changing up your offerings because of the pandemic and having to try to still motivate staff when you can't be with them and all these other things. And it's lonely at the top, as they say, which is true because I don't really have, internally a ton of people to rely on, right? So for me personally, that's the biggest challenge. And I always want to, get straight A's on all those lists, right? And you can't do everything perfectly all at once, and that's a big challenge for me. But I've gotten better at accepting that.
Well, I'm the person who does the social media for mine, so I hear you. And then like Threads, you're like, now I'm gonna learn something new.
Right. And then Threads. I was like,
yeah,
it's so funny you mentioned that because I literally said that to someone a couple weeks ago. I said, I struggle so much to get everything done, especially social media. Like I know I can do that at 12 o'clock and schedule it for different days. I said, then this Thread things comes along and I can't even schedule that.
right.
But I feel like I have to create an account for us so that we stay relevant,
So for you, what has been your best method or your best practice for kind of de-stressing from these challenging situations?
Walking. All I did in the pandemic was working and walking. And it saved me. I live in the suburbs, so I was lucky that I could walk for miles and miles and didn't see a soul and didn't have to wear a mask because I wasn't near anybody. And I would walk 15 plus miles a day. So I would take, when I wasn't on a Zoom, I would take calls on my phone, or I would walk like deep into the night by myself. And I really did it because I used to go to the gym every day and the gym closed. But it became like my mental salvation because I was alone and I had all these different stressors from work. And at a time where people were watching all these different series on Netflix and eating, I lost 30 pounds at the beginning of the pandemic. I gained it back. Don't worry, I've gained it all back since. But
I just did it.
Yeah, because I realized I needed it more for mental health than physical health at some point. And everybody's got that salvation. I actually discovered podcasts, ironically, during that time. Everybody told me podcasts. And I said, like, that's not for me. But I realized that some things people were dealing with in the pandemic, were relatable and they were sharing their stories and how they dealt with them. And that was very helpful to me. And then just, comedy and different things like that. The world was so dark and whatever it was, but I don't get as much time to walk as I used to. Like it's been so hot and the air has been so bad with the haze and all that. I've gotten out very little and I feel it.
So what's something that you envision or somewhere that you envision Bottomless to be in like the next 10 years?
Yeah, so you always want to think ahead and be evolving with the times. And I think that, we were founded on this women supporting women model, but the world has evolved and, the world is more gender fluid now. And, who we serve, I think, is going to change. We're serving a growing transgender community, for example. Also we serve New York City, but we do it from one location in New York City. And I would definitely love to have more boots on the ground in communities where we don't reach people, because a barrier to getting to us could be not having the metro card fare or not having childcare to get to us. So I'd love a mobile unit program where we were out in communities. There are parts of Staten Island where people really struggle to get to services, for example, or really far parts of Queens and the Bronx. So I'd love to be on the ground more than we are today. But it's a real struggle when you only have a handful of people on the team and there's so much to do.
Right. So we're really big with in CUNY startups, telling students how networking is so essential, right? How critical is networking in your industry?
For me, it's essential because when you have 8 people on your team and you need something that's not, the standard for the day, you have to rely on that network to help you out. And whether it was needing an auctioneer for our event, or we rely on donations of clothing and we don't get enough plus size clothing, who do you know who's in that industry, or shoes, or just things that from that standpoint. And there's, we just actually moved into our new space about a year ago and we got our move donated. We got our furniture donated. It's all based on networking. And, long story short, with our move, I had lined up a company to do the move for free, which was great. And it turned out that the one truck that they had for us was not able to take all of our stuff. And that night I went and I just blasted out to people I knew who weren't in the moving industry, but I feel like I know if anybody would know anybody who could help us, it's them. And actually it's not always the person that you think is going to be helpful. I knew someone who was very big in the storage industry and I emailed him first and he wasn't the person that helped me in the end. It was actually just randomly. I'll tell you, our second moving company was actually randomly going on Instagram and looking at moving companies. And I found an article about how this one moving company was female owned. And I said, hey, let me DM them. This is probably the longest shot of my things, but it was 4:00 in the morning and I was, and they were the first to respond. And they said, I'm sorry you're having this headache. We'll help you first thing this morning. And they did. And, that's a form of networking too. Just not having someone in your network and not being afraid to ask. Right. I'm not great about asking for things for myself, but for Bottomless Closet, I'll ask anybody. I love how your website, because you mentioned having clothes for plus size women or just any size. And I love on your website how you literally are really intentional about what you need, right? You'll say we need 12 in larger sizes so that people can really, even if they don't have that size, they can actually shop and bring those items to you. You don't really see that on a lot of websites. When you're trying to volunteer or donate to things, it's just furniture. But what type of furniture do you need? So it's really helpful that you're really intentional about what you need so that you can give to your clients. Right. And we have an Amazon wish list, specifically with those things we don't get enough of. And, it's not perfect. We do ask those things, but it's really hard to run a clothing drive in your office and say we only need these things. But you're, more likely to get them if you specifically ask. And my goal is to have everybody, feel included and great when they leave our office. And it's not a perfect system. I mean, we've all gone to a store that didn't have our size. But it's the last thing I want to happen in our space because it's a confidence derailer. So the more we can target the needs, the better. And what's something that you would want to share? Someone who's a lawyer too, who wants to go into nonprofit, a newbie into your profession. What's one advice that you want to share? There's no better way to help than kind of actually taking your the lawyer, take that hat off, just sit and listen, right? So I often, even though my job is not about working directly with the clients, sometimes we'll have a volunteer supposed to work with the client, call out sick or whatever it is, and staff has to jump in. And I always relish those times to get to spend with the clients and learn more and hear more about their experiences and try to help them. And oftentimes it's unplanned when I work with the clients because that's not my day job, right? So I can only sometimes do half the appointment because I had a pre-scheduled meeting. And I feel terrible that I don't leave them hanging. I have switched to another staff member or volunteer to do the rest of the appointment. But I always feel badly. I feel like I haven't given them enough time. And 100% of the time, the client has said, oh my God, thank you for the time that you spent with me. I'm so lucky that, someone with your background, like I don't ever tell them that I'm the executive director like that. But like I guess I could tell that, based on things I've said, that you've spent the time to listen to me. No one's ever done that in my life for me. I felt like I had a spa day here, and it's just kind of really humbling to realize that just listening to someone who has nobody to support them is really the best gift you can give anybody. And a lot of what you do in the nonprofit sector is, listening. If you're doing, I think, a good job, you're listening and seeing how you can help someone. And often it's, very simple of like giving someone an hour of your attention is priceless.
If you had the attention of the world, what's something that you want to say? Like just get on your soapbox and you'd be like, I'm preaching to everyone right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same thing, but also just again, as I mentioned earlier about paying it forward, like there's nothing that makes me happier than like finding a way to pay it forward. And whether it's, like I said, I rely on networking a lot, but I feel like I try to network and get people connected a lot too, because I'll often meet someone and see that they, have an interest in a certain industry. And I say, oh, I know these 3 people. And most people say that and they don't follow up. And again, like that little connection, even if you never hear from them again, I feel great from it, honestly. It makes me feel good. And you may not even get them to the answer directly, but you help them. And it's actually showing that you cared about them, but also the person that you're connecting them with is probably not someone that you're also regularly in touch with, but that you're thinking about them as well. So, I would say to, find some way to pay it forward in your life, and not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it makes you feel great.
So how can someone support and learn more about Bottomless Closet?
So the best way is to go to our website, bottomlesscloset.org, or to follow us on social media. As I mentioned, we're in every channel. LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Threads, we're in all those places. And there's lots of ways you can help. People often ask about ways to volunteer, and they're always intimidated by they may have to commit too much time, and they have very limited time. And we have ways to volunteer by running a clothing drive where you never have to come to us. There are ways to deliver workshops. All the workshops are delivered now virtually, and mostly by volunteers from corporate America who can do it from wherever they are. And can even collaborate with a colleague in another city online, which is great. And we have regular volunteers who are actually there to dress the clients, work on their resumes, do mock interview skills. So whatever amount of time you have to give, there's a way you can get involved with Bottomless Closet, and really have a very rewarding experience. And the people you meet are really cool. The clients, the volunteers, we've got a great network, and it's a great place. Not that I'm biased or anything.
Of course not, but you are. Thank you so much, Melissa, for spending time today to talk about Bottomless Closet. We really appreciate it. I'm a big advocate for volunteering. I was a Girl Scout leader. So anytime I can talk about an organization that's helping women, especially if they're feeling like they're at a spa after coming out of it, I'm all for it. So thank you so much.
Awesome. My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.